about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. He mentioned, did I want to create an exhibition about his 50th anniversary? I spontaneously said yes, without even really thinking about it. As soon as I said yes, then we started to make arrangements about me coming to the offices and to look at the archive.
Michael came up with the idea of these enlarged archive boxes, each 4 meter by 4 meter, 3 meter tall. Very democratic. Each artist has the same, regardless of their status.
I mean, it's like a maze of 4 by 4 boxes. And I like the idea that people can kind of get lost in the boxes because every box is the same, really.
He knows our history better than anybody else. And he was very determined to make this a work of art, to make it exciting.
I can't recreate people's experience of driving to Little Bay and witnessing the wrapped coastline or seeing Gilbert and George's singing sculptures. Not within my parameters, how much I'd love to have gone and seen them myself at the time. I mean, my job, I see it as like trying to animate the archive, make it come alive.
Four Australian artists are responding to our archives.
The early part of '69, before Rap Coast, I was trying to work out a way of moving from formalist abstraction into something which really engaged in the world in some way. Working on Rap Coast gave me the clue. Christine Jean-Claude made me think about organisation and about what cultural forms were, that in fact the way people worked together was as much a cultural form as, say, a painting on the wall or a 3D physical sculpture or something like that.
Sure changed my idea of scale of things, if nothing else.
When it was finished, I took some of the rope, so I had a roll of that orange rope, and I used it to make two works. It was a sort of tribute straight out to Rap Coast.
I think I mentioned to John that I had the idea of maybe doing a work that referenced Rap Coast, and he was very excited about that.
There were some copies of the slides of the work in the art gallery archives. John came across them and immediately just gave me a ring and said, well, why don't we actually try and remake it? What we've ended up doing is what all of those early installation works did, which is they played with accentuated aspects of the architecture which weren't immediately obvious.
I called the whole work A New World Rises because I think actually a new world did rise with the Rap Coast. You could say that Australian art post-white settlement, 1788, finishes in 1969, and then there's a new era.
We commissioned 2 young Australian artists, Alicia Frankovich and Agatha Gothe-Snape, to do a wonderful imaginative performance work which will rush through the whole exhibition.
So the premise of the work is that there is 7 performers. 1 performer each day occupies the gallery in the space of Michael Landy's intervention into John Kaldor's archive, and their task is to read. They read to themselves, they don't read out loud. They may or may not be interrupted by the public. They can sit, stand, lean, lie down, in any place they want in the gallery. I really wanted to give them the time, pay them to read to themselves, whatever book they choose to read. What is it to distribute resources? What is it to give a gift? How conditional are those gifts?
I sort of thought immediately it would be really nice to work with the people that produced those artworks or that archive. There's a lot of invisible labour involved in commissioning artworks that I guess most people would have no idea about. So everybody plays themselves. That's kind of a characteristic in my work. Everything from government partners to IT specialists, planters from Jeff Koons Puppy. I guess I wanted to highlight those individuals and, show another side to the history of these projects.
What are we talking about when we talk about art? We're talking about the way humans survive by understanding the world in different ways. And these sort of artworks help people think about the world in different ways.
Public art is important because the ordinary person can kind of encounter it. They don't have to go especially to a gallery. They don't have to negotiate the sort of art system.
At high school, I studied Christo's Rap Coast and Gilbert and George's Underneath the Arches, and to know that those works happen in Australia was alone very significant. Changed my understanding of my imagining of a kind of centre and periphery, whether it's against or away from or towards. We are in dialogue with this archive.
People understand the world differently through what they see through these sort of artefacts, and people understand Sydney landscape different because of things like Rap Coast.
It is genuinely a gift, you know, and it's John's joy of life that has led to this gift, and that has changed the shape of culture in Sydney and Australia. That's quite substantial.